Hi, I'm Praneeth, and welcome to my show, The Active Hour, where we discuss health and fitness, nutrition, and the blueprint to enhance your vitality. You know, I go to one doctor, he says some XYZ, and there's another.
I'm not a surgeon telling you need surgery.
And I've been asking, I got this, I got that, I'm playing blah, 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 blah.
If it's not going well, whose fault is it? It's your fault. Every ER shift is like, gosh, how lucky.
So I'm very confused. The use of AI, and you mentioned you kind of designed the MVP. Can you tell me what kind of AI tools are you kind of leveraging? I'm not trying to be an asshole, but not many report, or I've heard them supporting AI, saying, you know, you can leverage AI and so and things like that, because they still want to make sure that there's not too much emphasis, at least from what I've heard. But I might be wrong. But it's very nice that you're being very supportive of AI and kind of using it to leverage it for your company and, you know, to maximize the benefits. So what kind of AI are you kind of using, and what is your MVP?
Totally.
If that's okay to
of course, happy to tell you. I want everybody out there to do it. So that's fine. Well, first thing, I'll just like put my chips on the table, which is that I want what is best for patients. I don't want what is best for doctors. Gotcha, so I would make a shitty president of like, you know, a doctor association that's supposed to protect doctors' status quo. Like if there actually were a solution that would decrease America's need for doctors and staffing and make patients better off in that, I would support that, because that's better for society, for people, right? Like I'm more concerned about my parents getting good healthcare than about like the doctors, you know, having a job that nobody needs them to do, right? So I will put my bias on the there, and so the rest of this everyone can take with that caveat. I actually think that AI is going to make doctors more useful, and it's going to make them more valuable to people, but they have to be able to use it, and they have to be interested in kind of engaging with it. So our staff, like the physicians at Carte Clinics, use AI tools constantly. And I think I want to make one of our differentiating edges that we're better at using AI tools and we're more productive than the competition. Even if you could hire another doctor to do exactly what Carte Clinics does, that person would either charge you more money or do a worse job because they're not as facile with technology tools as we are. So I think it's an edge for a certain kind of doctor with a certain kind of approach. We use, you know, like off the shelf stuff, and then we've used Cursor to kind of try to make some more custom stacks. But the general premise is we start by getting all the medical records. So like, you know, right now, most people's medical records are dispersed across a bunch of different places and portals and my charts and, you know, like random printouts. We start by actually having a full corpus of everything for one patient, the direct to consumer stuff and the through the health system stuff, the raw image files. And then we try to sort of, you know, use that as the basis for an analysis. And I think that, you know, like just be candid with yourself. You can't do an analysis of that much data as a human, unassisted, as well as you can with an LLM. So like just use the LLM and then look at it and then use your time as a human, you know, more intelligently.
And can you walk me through what happens in Carte Clinic? Let's say I'm a patient. Walk me through the process, or just the user defining functions, as in, and maybe on a high level, end to end. Why should I use Carte Clinics? You know?
So high end, we get to know you at the beginning. We figure out what is going on in your universe. What are you worried about? What are the things on your radar health-wise that you need help with, that are kind of you feel stuck on right now? Like that could be simple stuff like, you know, one nagging symptom like back pain or recovery from some injury or a headache or pain during sex. It could just be one small thing, or it could be something more global, you know, about your motivation or broader chronic pain or a scary diagnosis you had recently. We just figure that out and we listen to you and talk to you and we listen to the whole thing. And I think that's the first big difference is most of the time you see a doctor and they only want to hear about one part of you, right? They're like, that is out of scope for this. Sorry. Like you have to go to someone else for that. And the problem is that everybody says something is out of scope. And so nobody just wants to know the whole picture. So we get to know the whole picture of you. And then we have an admin team that gets all of your data from everywhere, so that when we're talking about you, we have all of the numbers and all of the opinions and all of the lab results that everybody has ever gathered on you, right? And then
Nice. Yeah.
we basically just make a custom plan for you. So part of that is our additional diagnostics and workup and consultations that we would recommend with new people. And then part of that is just doubling down on the people who you already have in this system in your picture, but who you need help coordinating like the next steps with. Then there's a period of research. Usually
Yeah.
for any given client, there's like a couple of key questions that we need to figure out for that person. And
Okay.
usually the answer to that is going to require some research, right? It's not just like buried in a note somewhere. It's like we need to ask these LLMs, we need to ask a bunch of consultants and experts for this unique scenario with all of these specificity, like parameters, what is the right path forward, right? And some of that is about that person, the patient's preferences, right? This is their risk tolerance. This is how far they're willing to travel. This is their budget, etc., right? So then we do all that research and then we kind of make recommendations. And nice thing that clients have when they get recommendations from us is they sort of know that there's no bias, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not a surgeon telling you need surgery, right? For like
Yeah.
for myself, or I'm not a supplement company telling you need a supplement, right? So we don't have any incentive to upsell you or to convince you to get something. Or people get a lot of services through their insurance that tells them to get a second opinion on something. And lo and behold, the insurance tells them like, you don't need a surgery. And like the surgery would have been more
Yeah.
expensive, right? Or you don't need this fancy biologic. You can just go with the generic. It's like, well, are you just trying to save money on my case, right? So we have no bias. We're just trying to do the right thing for you. And the way that we make money is you're paying us to do the research. You're not paying us for a specific result or outcome. So then we give you your
100%.
advice. We got to know you. We did your research. We give you your advice. And then the rest of your membership is really just us being by your side and making sure that your goals and your plan are executed on. So part of making sure that that goal and plan is executed on is us helping give you accountability and us being there with you. And then part of that is us putting the system in accountability, right? So we have our admin take care of all your scheduling, and we make sure that the other parties and offices schedule you like they're supposed to. They don't delay your care. We make sure that
Gotcha.
other consultants and doctors are, doing the diligence and the research and the work that they're supposed to do and are following through as they're expected to. So we're just kind of like this person, a physician who knows you, the full you, by your side through the whole life cycle of your journey. And then we're with you for as long as you want. And then we kind of flex up and down with how much time we spend with you based on what else is going on in your life and how high touch we need to be. So some people we're meeting with them more than once a week. And then some people we're meeting with them once a quarter.
This is very nice because, like you said, you kind of found out some issues with the current healthcare system. And this is coming in as like a bridge to kind of help and then solve that problem, which is very inspiring though. Because I recently too, I kind of sprained my ankle really bad. Well, I've been going around 2, 3 places and I still didn't get the right care that I'm looking for. It's just a ankle sprain. I go to one doctor, he says some XYZ, and there's another. So I'm very confused and I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. And for me, it's just an ankle sprain. Maybe it'll heal in a few months. But then I kind of understood, what if some people have bigger problems? Because I know a friend of mine was struggling with cancer. And then I'm not trying to be an ass by bitching about the system, but there are some flaws that obviously need to be taken care of.
Yeah. And I mean, also like
Yeah.
an ankle
Yeah.
sprain, you're right. On the spectrum of
Yeah.
things, it seems
Yeah.
small, but like, I remember you told me how important movement is to you, right? And like
Yeah.
you move on your feet, so like the ankle being sprained, especially in the summer. I was just talking to
Yeah.
one of our clients and like, it's like he was looking forward to it all year because it's Seattle and the weather's not good otherwise,
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. And then, also when we don't recover well from musculoskeletal injuries, it really sets up a bad precedent for us in the
Yeah.
future. So movement is actually like our foundational thing for everybody. There's no client we see who we don't make sure they get a movement assessment. And our movement assessment isn't just reactive. It's not based on like, what's wrong now? What have you already broken? Or what
Yeah.
scheduled surgery do you have? It's like, no, like, how do you do the core movements in the day? What are your vulnerabilities? What are your asymmetries? And let's project that forward for as you're getting older, because I think a lot of people, they don't think about sort of how difficult it gets as you get older unless you have a huge reserve to get through those kind of unpredictable. None of us have really control over the things that happen as we get older that might be really challenging to get through.
When you speak of movement, the same thing. I went to 2, 3 doctors, and unfortunately, they was obviously so busy. And
Yeah.
I've been asking, I got this, I got that, I'm playing blah, 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 and
Yeah.
all. And because the doctor's so busy, it's like, yeah, it'll be fine. It's just a regular sprain. I'm like, so then, now I have to go back to someone else and things like that. So it's very nice that you also kind of emphasize on movement and exercise, not just a regular reactive care, but you're also doing this revolutionary care in terms of including all the aspects of a recovery and movement. So it's very nice. But what does the name Carte mean, by the way? What does it signify? Yeah.
Yeah. It in French, carte means map. So
Okay.
there's obviously like a la carte, like a menu when you can pick things separately, but it also means map. And the root of the word hospital and hospice is the same as the word hospitality, which is
Okay.
guest. And so the idea of a hospital is that you're this guest in this someone else's house. And while, people can be very good, hospitable to you,
Yeah.
it doesn't, there's a certain level of comfort you don't have when you're not in your own house. And sometimes we have no choice but to be the guest in someone else's house. And I think when you're very sick, obviously, there's some cases where you need to be in the hospital. But in the 21st century, most of us are thinking about our health not just when we're dying or when we need surgery and we're in the hospital, right? We're thinking about our health when we're living our own life in our home, in our community, like on our vacations, at our workplace.
Yeah.
And in all of those places, I don't want to feel like a guest in some doctor's office. This is
Yeah.
my turf, right? And so what I'm looking for healthcare isn't a hospitality experience. What I'm looking for in healthcare is a map. I want to be empowered and I want a guide. I want a physician to show me the
Yeah.
map of all of the services available, why this practitioner is good, why this practitioner is not good, why I need this assessment, why it is just a sprain and I shouldn't worry about it, or why this sprain needs a little bit more investigation and I would benefit from PRP or from, different types of modalities that could help me recover better.
Understood. Yeah. It's very nice. So now I want to get into the founder's mind a little bit. Like we discussed, you worked at various places and now you're a founder. What is that one scar in this whole process that kind of turned into a superpower? Because it's not easy to be a founder. It's not easy to build a company and everything that you're doing. It's not that easy. It's very, very hard. And like we discussed, the success rate is so less and it's so hard. Otherwise, every company would have become a Microsoft or a Google, right? So, but
Right.
then, yeah, what is that one scar that kind of turned into superpower?
I think when you're comfortable with failure, you are more prepared to try things. And I think that most people who are on the other side of many failures will tell you that they had to have some level of resilience to all the failures in order to have been able to get to where they got to.
Sure.
So I've heard people say that it's like a kind of a curse actually when entrepreneurs are very
Yeah,
successful early on because
I
they
see.
kind of
Yeah,
don't know how lucky they got and
yeah,
they're not prepared. They're now like in a place where they have more resources and more eyes, attention on them. And now if they fail and they don't manage that failure well, it's sort of more high consequence. Whereas if
yeah,
like you're kind of like going up slowly and you fail then and you kind of figure out how to respond to failure, how to fail better next time, you kind of like are like working your way up to the larger scale enterprises. So I'd say that knowing that things don't always go great and figuring out how to roll with that and not be disturbed deeply by it is probably one important. It's a scar
yeah,
for sure. I
sure.
guess I can
Yeah,
say it's
yeah.
superpower. I think the other thing that I would wish everybody to be a founder in some respect to do is that when you put yourself in charge of something, it doesn't have to be a company, whatever. Like I feel like being a parent is kind of like being a CEO of this little enterprise, and you can be high agency and take ownership without like having a C corp. It's just like, this is just a legal structure. But I think everybody should put themselves in the position of being a founder for something, because what it did for me is it gave me a kind of accountability that clarified my sense of purpose and made me not make excuses. So when it was like, if it's not going well, whose fault is it? It's your fault. Was like, okay, well, what can I control? What can I do better to make this go better? And if it's not going well, how can I change the way I'm spending my days and the way I'm communicating with people and the ways that I'm delegating, all the different levers that you have at your disposal. How can I change them to make a better outcome? So I just think it's just so healthy for everybody. We're all in this like really complicated, interconnected world, and we're part of these big corporations, and we complain about the healthcare system. And it's like, if you just had to be responsible for something and it was your fault, whether it went well or didn't go well, I think you would take a different attitude towards like what you can change, So yeah, I feel like that's the biggest change that I've just seen in myself in the last few years, because this is the first of the startups that I've been a part of that I was the CEO. And I do see a different sense of honesty with myself, which I think is good.
Yeah. And not many doctors do startups, right? And what kind of strengths do you think physicians kind of bring in that tech bros might not have it with them?
Yeah, good question. I like that you asked about strengths of doctors, because I think my default is always complaining about doctors. I think we do have good things going for us too. And probably most important is that that clinical experience I talked about earlier. All of just the very messy human things that you've seen, I think is unique perspective that even if you're not the CEO of a company or the person who's developing the technology, is very important for those other people to know about. I think that the biggest hang up that physicians have working with tech is that they are very used to being the person in charge, and they don't have that humility to work with the team and understand that like there's other types of expertise that they maybe don't have, that they need to listen and understand. And, now with Carte Clinics and working with all these doctors' offices across the country, and then working with PTs and nutritionists and psychologists and coaches, I realized that that's actually not just a problem for doctors moving into tech. It's actually just like a thing doctors need to work out in their day jobs also, because like making people healthy is not just about what we learned in medical school. It's about all these other things that we don't have expertise in. And so if we want to be the people who are counted on in the future, we need to be much better at listening to the other experts and integrating that into our picture, our conception of how to help a patient.
Gotcha. And you just mentioned that the clinic kind of gives the patient a map rather than a maze. So what does it practically look like? Is that maybe that one use case that shows your vision kind of in action? I know we spoke about the use case and things like that, but how is this a map more than a maze to patients?
Yeah. A lot of times the aha moment I've heard clients say is when they thought that they had an answer for some symptom or health decision, and then we come back to them after we did the research and they realize that actually a different answer is the right thing for them. So people have been, told that they're on schedule, definitely going to get some major surgery, and that is the only path for them to feel better. And then we do our research. We talk to our independent consultants in spine surgery, in bariatric surgery, in cardiac surgery. And then maybe we'll do a few more tests, or maybe kind of revisit some data point, or, gather more data. And then we go back to them and we tell them, look, like based on these other experts and based on this research and based on these guidelines and based on these parameters we see in your numbers, you actually don't need surgery. So I think the biggest kind of like map or opening up that we have for people is just, there's like so many opinions that are shot at people about everything, about like how to lose weight and how to not lose your hair and how to like feel more zen and whatever. People are just like barraged with all this advice about how to compose their day and their week and their month to optimize their health. And I think what none of these, talking heads are doing, or influencers or whatever, is customizing that to a person and their unique individual situation. So I think sometimes when we can distill all of that down and integrate it with the person's, unique biology and personality and needs, they get a new perspective. And I think that even then later, let's say that they're not working with us or they do something without us, I think it empowers them in a different way to like ask more questions the next time, or to be appropriately skeptical. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes people come to us and they're like, I know all these doctors were wrong. And,
Yeah.
all of this is just like backwards, and I'm looking for my real diagnosis. And we tell them, like, look, actually, all those doctors are right, and that is what is going on
Yeah.
with you. But what we do with them is we take the time and we have the space to really make sure that they feel heard and that they know that we've considered their case carefully. And so then when we tell them, like, listen, this is actually something that you don't have to worry about, they accept that. They don't go get 10 more second opinions or 3 more MRIs or whatever.
Gotcha.
I was talking to someone about, these full body MRI scans. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with how, like, a lot of doctors like poo-poo them, and they're just like, oh, like, this is just
Yeah.
like people are being fooled. Like, this doesn't
Yeah.
diagnose everything. And I feel like those doctors are missing the point. Like, the point that is so sad is that there are millions of people who are so unhappy, like they feel so unwell, and they have no guidance, and they have, like, they're paying $40,000 a year for health insurance,
Yeah.
and like no one will guide them. No one will take
Yeah.
25 minutes to talk to them. Like, all they can get is a 15-minute appointment 6 months out. And so they're spending $2,500 post-tax,
Yeah.
not accepted by insurance, to go into an MRI machine that they're basically treating as, an oracle of truth, because they have no one else, nothing else to lean on. So, like, the point is not vilifying the people who are doing these MRI scans. It's not like they're, the point is, like, why is our system so inadequate at listening to people and helping people figure out what's going on and make them feel like they have a plan? So it's like, I just feel like the whole paradigm of how that debate
Yeah.
is being addressed is like not pointing the blame and accountability and like need for reform in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And from your research, right, what do you think are the top 3 problems in healthcare or in receiving health? What do you think in that perspective?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean,
Yeah. 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 You're like, sorry, Gina, I didn't sign up for an easy podcast.
yeah.
Okay, so I think insurance is really difficult barrier to doing the right thing, because I think insurance is not set up to help think about the interventions that will save money in the long term, right? That's just not what insurance companies, how they make money.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a pretty big problem. And I think that, like with any other kind of insurance, like your car, you don't expect your car to pay for like your oil changes or for getting gasoline, right? So like for the preventative and the maintenance related stuff, probably makes sense for that to be kind of more free market. And then you have to think of ways for people who don't have as much money to basically have access to the same caliber of those preventative services. So insurance and sort of how prevention and like public health population-based stuff can be done well, I think is one big problem. I think that now the aftermath from COVID and, I mean, whatever, decades also of doctors being paternalistic and not trustworthy to patients has led to kind of the pendulum swinging in the opposite direction, where people are skeptical of really actually validated and useful health interventions and are doing a lot of, not evidence-based and actually like evidence pointing against activities that are harming themselves. So I think actually one of the probably the second like big problem I would say in healthcare today is a kind of culture of misinformation and a lack of sort of foundational truth and trust,
Okay.
like who to seek for that. And then maybe if I had to pick just 3,
Yeah,
like
just 3.
there's a lot more. I would say the
Yeah, of
third
course. Yeah,
which has to make it in the top 3
yeah.
is our relationship to food. I would say that
Okay.
that probably
Yeah.
makes it into the top 3 because so much is wrapped up in food. like so
Yeah.
much about how we connect with other people and how we take care of one another and how we take care of our environment and just the way that people have to eat on the go and can't afford healthy stuff and kind of regulation and inertia in the industry is so much pushing us
Yeah. That's a
unhealthy.
whole new topic too.
Exactly. I think has a lot of like downstream impacts on health and, just down, like even like more involvement in making food and capturing food and preparing food, how that affects how sedentary you are versus how active you are and what you crave and how much you rely on people near you versus people far from you who you've never met. Like it captures so much. So I think that would be my number three.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are all really great. And when it comes to just regular health, right? What do you think are the top three? Example, diabetes or cardiovascular diseases. I would like to know your top three based on all your years in the experience of medicine and your research within the Carte Clinic. Health problems, example diabetes or cardiovascular diseases.
But like you
No,
mean
your
like
top three. Yeah,
cancer? Like cancer is very problematic. Like
yeah,
everyone
but
knows that. Or you mean like
yeah,
controversial or like surprising?
things that in our control that we can control. And example, cancer most of the time is not in our hands,
I
right?
see. Modifiable
So
things. Okay.
yeah, modifiable things that it's in my hands. Example, if my food and nutrition is good, I
Yeah.
might decrease my
I see.
cardiovascular issue.
Okay.
Or if I'm in check with my regular exercise, nutrition, there are chances that I can avoid diabetes, things like that.
Okay. So I think number one thing is people's self awareness. So
Okay.
yeah, knowing like having kind of a mind body connection and knowing
Okay.
when you feel certain things, what that is telling you, which is sounds super basic, but
Yeah.
I think is actually very difficult. And some of that is like related to movement and athletic pursuits, and
True. Yeah.
some of that is related to how you process pain and hunger and sleep deprivation and stuff. But I think being aware of how you feel and what you can do about it is actually like a very core tenet to managing your emotions in a healthy way and preventing injuries and knowing when you need to take a break and so on. So that's something that we actually try to
Okay.
train clients on,
Nice.
but you can't take that on head on.
Yeah.
Like if you ask somebody like how do you feel about your connection to your body, they're just going to kind of look at you like,
Yeah.
fine, I guess. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of like dance
Yeah.
around it a little bit. So that's one. I think, this is a very trendy answer to give right now, but I think that metabolic health is, pretty has like pleiotropic effects, like it's kind of like all over your body and your system that you can modify quite a bit.
Sure.
I'm not as like obsessed with people having like as low blood glucose as possible all the time as I think some people are. I don't think that that's necessarily like always the direction that people want to go in. But it's true that in general, most of society, most of us are our sugar level is higher in our blood than it needs to
Yeah.
be most of the time, and that it's often spiking more dramatically than it needs to be due to basically what our muscle stores are, what our activity level is, and the composition of what we eat. So I think that's a modifiable one. There's so many:
I
breathing,
know. Yeah.
sleep, nutrition. Okay, so third one,
Yeah.
I guess I would
Yeah.
say. Actually, I would say it's probably knowing your family history, knowing your
Okay.
genetics.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
people do some genetic testing, microbiome testing. I think without context, it's not very productive. But I think if you have some kind of a scaffolding on which to say like this is where I'm coming from and these are what my vulnerabilities are, I think it can be very informative for what you should
Yeah.
prioritize and how that's different. My genetic makeup and my like ethnic predispositions and things that I'm at risk for are very different than somebody who has a totally different ancestry from me and a different family history than me.
Yeah. Because recently I've also heard about this aspect where a lot of folks are kind of doing the early stage cancer testing,
Yeah,
doing a lot
cell-free
of
DNA.
the genetic testing that you mentioned.
Yeah,
And I also had it in my mind. Maybe I should go and test it out sometime soon.
yeah,
So
yeah.
hopefully I'll probably get. So what would you what would your advice be to a young 24-year-old girl just graduating from medicine, wanting to do something like you did in the field of AI today, where you have so much of things you can do? You can use your AI, so much of open source models that you can leverage. And if they want to make an impact on medicine or healthcare, one advice to that young girl on what field she can go ahead and tackle or start with, thinking that she doesn't have too much capital, obviously.
Yeah, I like how you frame that
Yeah.
question. And I think that advice is a very tricky business, right? Because
Okay. Yeah.
usually the most important thing that anyone should do is to listen to themselves more, right? And have a greater self-awareness of what they know that they should be doing, that they're not doing, and deep down, kind of what we know is kind of unanswered. So
Sure.
I like that you said to start small, because that means that anybody can start regardless of where they're at or
Yeah.
what resources they have. And yeah, I think I would probably just advise that person to go ahead and start and to not wait, and to think about what is the small experiment or project you can do about the thing you really care deeply about. It doesn't have to have a clear ROI. It should just be something that you're like, this is something I put off or I was afraid to do, and just to try to do some small experiments about it. Sometimes it'll show you that like that's totally not what you want to do. Sometimes it'll show you that there's a far way that you have to go before you can, be qualified for what you want. Sometimes the result is kind of
Yeah.
humbling, but you're always closer to progress after doing that than before. So,
Understood.
yeah, I think I would just say, like, get out there and do the thing you were waiting to do.
Well, so being from a Northeast girl, and then wanting to be in the journalism aspect of medical science, and then an ER doctor, now a founder, what are your next goals from here? Looking at all the things you have achieved, what are your next goals from here?
Yeah, good question. Well, I feel like there's a lot more to learn with Carte Clinics, and we're in a good position where like there's a lot of runway to do that. So that's very exciting, and just see where that goes. I I have like a list of ways that I want to be better to my family. So
Okay. Yeah.
that is like, I'm sure the listeners can relate that there's like kind of a infinite way you can be better, or things that the people around you who love you are telling you you should do better
Yeah.
at. So that is inexhaustible. Yeah, and I think I want to just make sure I have more fun. It's like uh, something you're reminded of on every ER shift is like, gosh, how lucky you
Yeah.
are that like today you aren't a patient in the ER, and if you don't have any loved one who's in the ER, that like you guys are all able to just go out and enjoy each other and life and the world. So I think all of this time we've been talking about, making these big changes and changing the system and solving all these problems, but like the atomic unit of like each person, like feeling fulfilled and happy and being good to themselves and good to the people around them
Yeah.
and being grateful is kind of like, if you're not doing that, why are you doing all of this other stuff? So
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think I try to remember that.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all your time, and truly appreciate you giving all this fantastic information on my show. And I wish you all the luck for everything that you do in terms of
Thanks.
revolutionizing the healthcare system. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to our next chat. It's always fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Active Hour podcast. We hope you loved the episode. If you did, please give us some love in the reviews. Guess what? No ChatGPT was used in the making of this episode. Until next time, bye!